Hi, my name is willblank and I am an editor in AE, and today I'm going to teach you how to multi-group. This video is meant to supplement a written tutorial that I've made, which you can find at the link below and also in the description. And you'll want to go to the actual tutorial to get access to some of the video files that I've used as examples to help you follow along and basically duplicate my process step by step. With that said, let's get started. So first thing you're going to do is open up Avid and, like instructed in the written tutorial, create a new 2997 project, 1080p 2997, and import the assets that are provided in the link below this video. I'm going to open up the assets bin that I've created, which has the camera A, B, and C files, as well as one external audio clip. Make a new bin that is entitled AE Work, and inside this bin create a new sequence entitled Sync Map. Your sync map sequence should already be open once you've created it. And what you're going to do is lay in each of these clips. So I have it set so that I can basically overwrite the clip into the timeline from the bin. So I'm going to do that with this. Then I'm going to create a new audio and video track for camera B. Lay that in. Camera C only has one mono audio track, so I'm just going to create one audio track for it. So I'm going to lay these 5 clips in. Finally, lay in the external audio. Once you have all your clips in the timeline, your timeline should look like this. And normally what you would do is, using the base camera, which in this case is camera A, you would by hand find different sync points within the audio. For instance, there's some footage of me clapping at various intervals. That's ideally a slate that you'd be able to use to then sync up all of the different cameras. You can enable waveforms to make the sync points more apparent. But we're very lucky, and I set it up specifically so that we would be able to use Pluraleyes, which is an application that allows you to sync up the audio in seconds. So what we're going to do is export it to Pluraleyes. So File, Export. In this window, make sure you have the AAF export option selected from the drop-down menu, and then click Options. Make sure that your settings are the same as the settings on my screen. The AAF that we're about to create is what Pluraleyes is going to use to recreate our sequence. And I'm going to put it in a folder called AAF, but you can really put it anywhere. It doesn't matter where. Open up Pluraleyes. And then click File, New Project from Media Composer. Select your AAF, and your files should magically appear. When it's coming from Avid, it will typically only appear as waveforms. And then it's as simple as clicking Synchronize. Pluraleyes literally does it in seconds. You can now go to File, click Export, AAF. This window will pop up. In order to bring this Pluraleyes timeline synced up into Avid, you can click this file and drag it over into the AE Work bin. If it happens to bring in these clips, just go ahead and delete them. It shouldn't normally do that. The master clips, not the associated media files. Once you've got it in your program, double click it, and your synced timeline should show up. For simplicity's sake, I am going to trim this timeline so that we're dealing with where the first frame of video shows up. And I turned on sync locks over here in order to just make it easier to do that. Once I don't have audio anymore, I don't really care about this video, so I'm going to cut this out as well. So once we have this completed sync map, it's a good idea for you to check to make sure everything's in sync 1. Everything is fairly well synced up. And we no longer need this sync map exported 01. I'm going to get rid of that. But you will want to save a copy of your sync map. In this case, I think I'll make a backup bin. You're going to want to create a copy of your newly synced sync map, then move that new sequence and your unsynced sync map into that backup bin. This is in case you or your editor ever need to refer back to them. So because of how Avid works, you will need to essentially divide this timeline up into chunks in order to multi-group it. And what that means is every time that there is a new instance of a clip, you're going to need to place an add edit. The exception here is the beginning of the timeline where we have these 3 clips starting. There's no reason for us to put any add edits here. But this camera 3 camera operator keeps turning the camera on and off, which you'll find on many shows. What you'll need to do is place an add edit across all of the tracks at the head of this new clip instance. And do the same thing for all of the new clip instances. That should be good. If you need a little more help understanding the concept of where to put the add edits, I've linked to another one of my blog posts that explains it in detail in the description of the video below. The next step is creating a keyboard that will have all of the keys that you'll need to multi-group. So you're going to want to go to Settings and then Keyboard, create a new one, call it multi-grouping. I've already done it, so I'm going to open it up. And for the number 1, you're going to want to put Mark Clip. For the number 2, you're going to want to put Go to In. For the number 3, you're going to want to put Match Frame. For number 4, you're going to want to put Go to Out. And for number 5, you're going to want to put Mark Out. And for number 6, you're going to want to have Make Subclip assigned. And then number 7, which is the last number, will be Fast Forward. Once you've mapped the keyboard properly, you can close it out. Make sure that the check next to it is active. The next thing you're going to want to do is scroll up to Composer in the Settings tab. Double click it and go to Fast Forward Rewind. And you're going to want to make sure that you have Stop at Head Frames selected and everything else deselected. This is going to be really important for when you navigate the timeline when you're multi-grouping. Press OK. Go back to your bin view. Open up the AE work bin. From here, you're going to want to click the hamburger menu. Click Choose Columns. Deselect all of the current selections. Then go in and select Auxiliary Timecode 1 and Mark In. Once you have those 2 selected, click OK. And you'll notice these 2 columns are the only columns we can see now. And you're going to want to reverse their position. So we go Name, Mark In, Auxiliary Timecode 1, and then save this as whatever you'd like. I'm going to call it multi-grouping. So you can return to it whenever you want. What you are going to do now is deselect the segment tools, so neither modes should be active. Otherwise, the timeline indicator will get stuck on individual clips. Deselect all of these tracks except for video 1. And then we're going to hold Command and click the monitor button here, which turns it green, which means it's being soloed. And with multi-grouping, essentially what you have to do is subclip each and every video track and external audio track one by one. So you're going to work your way up. We're going to go V1, V2, V3, and then we're going to do the external audio tracks. Making sure that V1 is activated. Now you're going to walk your fingers across the top part of your keyboard, numbers 1 through 6. So first up, press 1 which is going to mark your clip in the timeline window. Press 2, which is going to go to in, making sure that your timeline indicator is towards the front of the clip. Press 3, which is going to match frame and bring up your clip in the source monitor. Make sure your source clip track selectors are enabled. Press 4, which will go to the out point that corresponds to where it ends on the timeline here. And you can see it's denoted by what's called a phantom mark. And then press 5, which will actually mark the out point at that point. Then press 6, which will create a subclip. And your next step is copying the mark in point from your timeline and pasting it over to the auxiliary timecode 1 field. It's literally as simple as clicking it, copying it, and then pasting it over here. And the reason you're doing this is because the auxiliary timecode is what Avid is going to use to determine where each of the clips goes within the multi-group that you're creating. Now we need to return to the timeline and then press the 7 key to jump to the next add edit, where you will then walk your fingers across the top of the keyboard one more time. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and another subclip should appear. We'll copy the mark in from the timeline and paste it into the auxiliary timecode. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, new subclip. And you will repeat this process for each and every add edit point from your timeline. Once you've finished the first set of clips, you're going to solo the second video track, V2, and then walk across. I'm going to slightly speed the video of my hand syncing up because it's just too tedious to watch. Move up now to V3. And then finally, your audio, which we will activate. No need to solo it necessarily. You only need to activate one of the tracks from the external audio because they both link back to the same source clip. Walk across the keyboard just like any of the video clips. Okay, now we have all of our subclips, and what we're going to do next is click the name column and press Command E, which will sort by name. And this will help the various camera angles maintain their position in the multicam banks, which you'll see in moments. So select all of your subclips that you've created and click Bin and go down to Multigroup, click it, and make sure that you sync clips using auxiliary timecode 1. And that's pretty much all you'll need to touch. You can make the window look like this and you should be good to go. Click OK, and you may get this question. I click Group Always, and you'll see that your bin is now populated with 5 different groups, which if you're looking at the tutorial, you should have seen the diagram that sort of by color broke down what the groups were, and then a multi-group. And you'll notice that if you double click the multi-group clip and then click the 4-camera quad split and scrub through it, that each of the clips should play in tandem and should be perfectly in sync. You'll notice that the points in time where the camera is dropping out corresponds to the timeline. From here you could cut this multi-group clip into a sequence and start editing with it, and that's pretty much the process of syncing and creating a multi-group by hand. So what we're going to do is delete all of these clips that we just created. I know this is a painful thought. Oops, select them all. And I'm just going to delete the clips and delete the group. Although it's possible to multi-group long, complex sequences by hand, there is a better, less labor-intensive way to do it, which is by using a keyboard macro program. In our case, the most popular and most widely used one is Quickeys. You can refer to the tutorial, which has all the download info for Quickeys, which is now free for perpetual trial license forever. Open up Quickeys and then click the small Quickeys button in your menu bar and click Open Quickeys Editor. From here, we're going to import a Quickeys shortcut by going File, Import Shortcuts that I've provided for you in the body of the tutorial. Click QK Multigroup Setting, which should then appear in your window. And there's some things you're going to have to do in order to prep Avid. It's important to make sure that you keep your sequence as the bottom and only item in the bin that you're multi-grouping. Take your AE work bin and place it in the upper left-hand corner of the screen. You're going to place it up here. And you're doing this because this particular keyboard macro is going to refer to a specific point on your monitor. And in order to make sure that it is referring to the proper point, you'll want to double click the Quickeys multi-group shortcut. And actually you can see here within this macro the various steps. Typing the keystroke 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the next step, you're going to click Set Location. And chances are actually the location that's already set will work, but just to be safe, you're going to want to make sure that you go over the name column of sync map exported 1 synced and press the caps lock button to lock the location. Click OK. Once you've set your location, go ahead and close the window, save it, and then you'll return to Avid. And what this macro is going to do for you right now is it will create those subclips like we did tediously by hand before, and it will apply the auxiliary timecode automatically for you, which will really help you minimize errors throughout this whole process. So set up your timeline like we did when we were grouping by hand. Again, make sure you don't have any of the segment tools active. We'll start with the first video track, solo it, and then the keystroke that I've assigned to activate the macro is F6. So I'm going to press F6 on my keyboard. Now this window will pop up, which will ask you how many times you want the macro to cycle. In other words, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 buttons that we programmed earlier. And in this case, looking at this first video track, there are going to be 5 instances that will need Quickeys to run for us. So I'm just going to type in 5. This is a fairly straightforward timeline, but in crazier ones, you may not be able to count it out exactly, in which case it's fine to just guesstimate how long you want it to repeat and then just have it go. Click OK. And watch the macro do its thing. You can see it applying the auxiliary timecode for you almost instantaneously. And that's the first layer done. Activate the second layer, or bring your timeline indicator to the head of the sequence. And because there's filler here at the front, I'm going to run it 6 times. Alternately, you could bring the timeline indicator over to the first clip, which, you know what, I'm just going to do that. So I'm bringing it to the head of the camera B clip, activating the macro. I know that there are 5 groups, 5 different ad edits. Click OK, and watch it do its thing. And then go ahead and return to the first clip on V3. Run the macro again. There's a couple other gaps, so I'm going to say 9. And you'll notice that it's creating subsequences, which we will have to delete after the fact. And that's just because it's subbing out the filler. An easy way to delete these sequences here is to select them all. And don't delete the subclips, just delete the sequences. We still have our external audio to do. So I'm going to activate A6, press F6, and run it for 5 times. You can see that our clips have shown up, and they all have the proper auxiliary timecode attached to them. Select the name column and type Command E. Select all your clips, don't select your sync map. Go up to bin, multigroup, make sure auxiliary timecode is what you're syncing with. Click OK, and there you have it. Double click your multigroup, quad split view, and scrub through it, and you can see roughly that the footage is properly synced up. If you want to verify even further that the footage is properly synced up, you can create a new video track, create a couple new audio tracks, mark the entire multi-group clip, and then overwrite this multi-group into your sequence. Make sure you clear your ins and outs on the timeline. Now when you overwrite it, and I always keep my sync locks on for everything, and you'll see that the add edits actually match up with the multi-group subsections. This should help you identify problems if there are any, because it will become very apparent that they don't match up, and you'll need to go back through and either re-subclip or change the auxiliary timecode to make sure that it's matching up properly. Otherwise, you've just created a multi-group. You can delete your subclips or place them into a backup bin or whatever you prefer. In this case, I'll just place it all into a backup bin, so that you're left with a multi-group and your sync map, and you can rename it to whatever you like. And that is the process of multi-grouping in Avid. I hope the tutorial has been helpful to you, and if you'd like to learn more about me, my website is www.willblank.com, as well as willblanksblog.blogspot.com. And one thing that is important to me is that if you found this tutorial helpful, that you send me a message or an email or leave a comment that just lets me know how this helped you, whether you got a job, or it made your life easier at your current job, or pretty much anything would give me a lot of satisfaction. So thanks, and happy multi-grouping, as happy as it could be.